What was your inspiration to curate this exhibition?
Well, I suppose actually the starting point was an absence. I mean, the Holborn has this exceptional collection of British 18th century portraits, but it doesn't have any portrait sculpture. And that would clearly have been odd for an 18th century person. I mean, the sculptors of the age, with Billiac and Rinesbrack and Wilton and Nollekins and all the rest of them, were as famous and actually sold their works for rather more than the great painters. But today, of course, the painters are who we remember, the Gainsborough and Reynolds and so on. So that was one thing. And the other thing was seeing some of the sculpture. There was a wonderful exhibition at the Royal Academy some years ago now called Citizens and Kings, which was a portrait show which brought together paintings and sculpture. And the paintings I was, on the whole, familiar with. The sculpture I wasn't, and it was spectacular. And so those two ideas really were the start of this exhibition, I suppose.
How does this exhibition differ from other portrait sculpture exhibitions that have been held in other galleries and museums?
Well, there haven't been very many, you know. There was an exhibition called Back to Life that was held in Leeds at the Henry Moore Institute some years ago now, which did look at the portrait bust. But this exhibition does a number of things differently to that. One is its range of dates is far greater, and so we have here things from 300 BC to the 21st century, in fact, to just a few months ago. And so the range is greater. Also, we don't only concentrate on portrait busts in this show, so it's looking really at how strange portrait sculpture can be. And what's particular about it, and some of the ways in which artists have used portrait sculpture for their own ends.
What drew you to the pieces you have selected for the exhibition?
Well, I think I started with a few ideas, and a few ideas to explore, I suppose. And one of those was the importance of sculpture in relation to death. Both because sculpture can, if you like, replace the physical presence of the departed. Another was the idea that sculpture was eminently reproducible, in fact much more easily reproduced than paintings in the age before photography. And then there are the key questions of colour and scale, which are absolutely central, I think, to sculpture, or the absence of colour. And so it was really around those themes that I started selecting objects. But the one abiding thread through the whole selection process was that the things should be as good as possible. So to choose examples of the very highest quality. And I think we've managed to do that. I mean, we've got wonderful 18th century examples, extraordinary things from the ancient world, and some very spectacular things from the 20th and 21st century as well.
Which piece do you think best represents the theme of the exhibition?
Well, there are a number of themes to the exhibition, so it's not straightforward to focus it on one piece, although I suppose there is perhaps the least great work of art, arguably, in the show, is one that does encapsulate the theme to a degree, and that is the waxwork from Madame Tussauds of Henry Moore. Now, Henry Moore was the great British modernist sculptor, and he talked a lot about presence, the presence of his sculptures, but it was absolutely not to do with what they looked like. He talked about his sculptures having the force of great mountains and things like that, and the presence of his sculpture he saw as somehow coming from within. Now, of course, he would have hated the idea of the waxwork of him. He sort of railed against the idea of representational sculpture. But a waxwork has its own very clear presence as well, and you only have to go to Madame Tussauds and see the crowd sort of milling around the models of their heroes to see that. And so, in a way, that piece, a waxwork of Henry Moore's, seems to encapsulate many of the themes in the show.
Why did you feel a family trail was necessary to go alongside the exhibition?
Well, one of the difficulties of of a sculpture exhibition in a gallery is actually, of course, particularly in terms of portrait sculpture, most of it is out there. Most of it was made for particular places, and on the whole, or very frequently, it's still there. And so in Bath, there is some rather remarkable portrait sculpture in situ, still in situ. So there's a wonderful statue of Victoria on the Victoria Art Gallery. There are all kinds of monuments within Bath Abbey and so on. And so we can't get great monuments into this exhibition gallery. So it was, the idea of the trail was one in order to send people out into the streets and to open their eyes actually to what is around them.
What interested you in working with heritage students?
Well, obviously, heritage students are all lovely, and that was the main. We are a university museum, and so it's very important for us to work with students, and students bring an enormous amount to us. I mean, the dialogue is two-way, if you like, and well, as you know, a number of people who volunteer at the museum are students and heritage students. And also, of course, it's about us, we hope, preparing students for the wider world beyond. So, you know, anything we can do to show really how museums work, and I think it is valuable.
Thank you.